And so some of us have experienced it on a boat, some of us have experienced it in the water, but the drift is a very real and present thing in our lives. And so I'd like to talk about it a little bit now that we know where it comes from. And my friend Daniel Harkavy, who authored the topic, I'd like to unpack a little bit more about what that might mean for those of us who are at this season of our professional lives that the drift might be present.
So give us an example when someone might start to say, oh, wait, is this the drift in their career and their life? What does that look like for somebody?
All right, let's go personal first. I think for many of us, as we get outside of our college years and start working in our career, we're hungry, right? We want to eat, we want to have a place to live. We might want to get married to someone, and so the work that we do is very motivated by our need for that income and our need for what that provides. And so we've got a lot of ambition, and we fight really hard and we work really hard, but sometimes we're not aiming at certain direction or destination because we're just young. We don't know the difference. And at some point, we have to ask a very normal question of, wait a minute, where is all this work leading toward? Why am I doing all this? What does a better version of me look like? And, from time to time, that gives us an opportunity to orient toward a version of the future. When you and I were drafting a life plan, we might have said, hey, without this, it's kind of like having a compass that doesn't know where true north is. We're working our tails off, but how do we know if we're getting anywhere? So in our personal lives, what we might orient toward is a destination, like finishing college, getting a job, getting married, things that are important to us. And once we've accomplished those, we can sometimes forget to set the next destination. Could be with your health, could be with a relationship, could be with your finances. And once you've failed to set the next destination, you tend to start living life a little more casually, maybe a little more, you play it a little safe, and you start pulling back a little, and you find yourself not really practicing that same ambition that you had maybe earlier in your life. And suddenly things start to drift. And the drift shows up in things like your waistline or in your consumer debt, or maybe in the marriage counseling that you now find yourself in, or as a parent, you're, at odds with your kid over something, and nobody sees it coming until they're in the middle of it. And their drift might just be that they didn't have the orientation of, what is the better version of what I'm aiming for next in this area of life? And so they just kind of let life happen. They let life come at them. And just like that boat in the water, you think you're safe because here you're still in the boat until you wake up and realize, oh my gosh, my boat has floated way far away from where I wanted to go.
Mhm.
And that happens in our personal lives all the time. And you don't tend to recognize it until either someone outside of your situation calls it out, or even worse, something really bad happens. Maybe it's not the few pounds you put on, it's the doctor standing over you in the ER who says, sorry to tell you, but we're taking you in. You're going to have bypass surgery today.
Mhm.
And you think, how did it get to this? How did I get here? It usually takes an event or someone who cares about us intersecting us and telling us, hey, I think something's wrong. I think you're in the drift.
So one way I think about the drift is, you're on let's say you're on a hike, right? And you slightly adjust, and maybe you get a little bit off the trail. And you're like, oh, if I keep going this way, I'll probably get back on the trail. But it might make those 1% turns. So it's kind of the opposite of, let's say, the books that are like, hey, if you improve by 1% daily, but if you kind of slide 1% daily, all of a sudden, after a few months, you're 90 degrees off of where you meant to go pretty quickly without ever recognizing each of those 1%. So that's kind of what I think of as the drift, and how I can sometimes be like, wow, how did I get on this very odd thing? Oh, I started to look at social media 20 minutes a day, and then 30 minutes a day, and then 35 minutes, and all of a sudden it's like, holy cow, now that's my life. So it's sometimes good to say, okay, what new habits have I picked up that maybe have moved me that 1%, and how do I get them pulled back?